Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foujan.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foujan Zain, a psychotherapist, an author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm so thrilled to have you join me today for what I promise you, an interesting and insightful discussion. Today, I speak with Sean McMahon. Sean was recruited right out of college to work at one of the largest data firms. He embarked on an 8-year journey from a new grad to consulting director. Privileged to see behind the curtain of some of the largest corporations today, he recognized the system was not working well, and so therefore he quit. And the height of his career, when working at least the least, but making the most money he ever had. And he let go of everything, reputation, money, everything that was coming for him. And he went around a journey for himself and looking at what are some of the ways to fix the problem of the corporate jungle. So he shares his insight in his new book, Hacking the Corporate Jungles. For all of you who are working in corporate, you're definitely going to enjoy this book, Hacking the Corporate Jungle, how to work less, make more, and actually like your life. You can also contact him at seanmcmahon.com. Yeah, we spoke about what is the culture and how can you like yourself and do activities that within your life that brings you self-worth, brings you who you are, although you are part of a system and a structure. So I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Now, be sure to subscribe to my podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foujanzain.com. Be sure to go to Foujan app, and you have about 30 different areas of life, finances, your health, spirituality, intimate relationship, marriage, all of those areas where you can really go through a guided journaling. We also have the companion, AI companion, Mira, that was really trained through the awareness integration. You can ask Mira anything and she'll respond to you from the awareness integration theory. So you'll enjoy that. So go and you can go to Foujan.com and download it. You can go to Apple Store or Google Play and you get that. You have about a couple of days of free. So just kind of like check it out and see how you like it and let me know. Go to my social media platforms and contact me and just share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, here's Sean McMahon.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foujan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foujan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foujan Zain, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
It is so nice to have you with us, Sean McMahon.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Doctor.
Absolutely. You're away from home. You're going. So where are you right now?
Actually? I am. I'm in my parents' house. I brought the grandkids up here. They're their only grandkids, so I brought them up here for the long weekend.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, you wrote the book. Let me share it with everybody. Hacking the Corporate Jungle: How to Work Less, Make More, and Actually Like Your Life. I think everybody's going to love you after they read this book, because I think this is what everybody wants. So, what do you have against corporate world? You tell me yours and I'll tell you mine, but go.
That's a good question. So, I guess to start, right, I was recruited right out of college to work at one of the largest data firms most people have never heard of. And they are, in a sense, Big Brother. They have like 3,000 data points on everyone in the United States, and they're actively trying to acquire data points on everyone else globally and in the rest of the world. And I really liked working for them, to be candid, for about 8 years. And in that time, I went from new grad to consulting director. So by the end of it, I was like the youngest in a director position by about 15 years. And I saw a lot of things. I saw behind the curtain of these corporations, and a lot of them have way more money than they could ever use in any sort of lifetime. And they trade it back and forth. And it's incredibly inefficient. And the people who are running these corporations are really focused on risk aversion, right? Playing things very safely, not making any new bets on new technologies, a new way of order, a new organization of government, or a new society, as it were. And the more and more I stayed in this and did the same thing over and over and saw everyone else working, the more and more you realize, like, I say it in my book. I think corporations kind of embrace like a modern day fascism where people aren't really encouraged to be people. You have to kind of keep your opinions to yourself. You can't openly talk with coworkers. It's not a place where humans go. You're a worker and you're a robot. And I think corporations served a certain purpose and brought us to a certain point in society. And now I think it's time for an evolution for them to for capitalism in general, I think, to evolve and for us to write a new playbook, as it were, of how corporations fit into society and how the rest of society should function and all of our individual roles within that society. I could talk about this all day.
What do you mean by this is not where human goes? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So I think there are a lot of people in society who I think me particularly, I had to be taught how to work. I had to be taught how to really contribute, which is the root cause of work, right, in our societies. How do you contribute? How do you do your fair share so we can all live and cooperate and function together? And I think corporations serve that function really well in some aspects. They take, like me, young kids right out of college, and they train us in a specific discipline and get us working, get us functioning and contributing to society. I think that can only go so far. And I think now where corporations are influencing major elections, when they're involved in, I would argue, the corruption of our society, when their only and top goal is profit above all else, it starts to have costs elsewhere in society that starts to, at least for me, challenge whether or not they should actually exist as they are, right? They become too powerful. And I think because of all those reasons I stated earlier, corporations helping train people how to contribute, how to work, how to enter markets that they would not otherwise be in is a great function. But I think they've taken that function and that skill and all that money they've made from that function and started infiltrating and being in other spheres of our society where they really shouldn't be. And it's starting to cause more inefficiency. And like we saw in '08 with market crashes, and we almost see every almost 10, 12 years where a market or an economy tanks. Their greatest strength is their greatest weakness. Their focus on efficiency above all else and profit above all else is also what I think degrades society as a whole and makes the economy ever more shaky. And I guess long story short, I think they're outdated, and I think corporations need to shift their goals from bringing profit above all else to something else. And candidly, I haven't figured out what that something else is yet. I'm hoping maybe my readers and your listeners can chime in and help us all find it together. But I can see where corporations served a very important function.
And are you suggesting that there's a big, because I mean, you could have a corporation that is one person to three people and start a corporation. So I'm assuming that the group you're talking about is above a percentage of employees that you're talking about. So it's not just, any type of corporation. You're talking about a corporate world, which means a particular size of a corporation. Is that what I'm sensing from you?
Correct. Yeah, thanks for calling that out. There are certain corporations in the world, and there's about 10 of them that own over 50% of the global economy. And so, like JP Morgan Chase is one of them. We don't have to name all of them. I probably don't want to get you in legal trouble, but there are some that are just so big that they have more power and more money than actual countries. And I think that's where things get where that profit above all else goal starts to have adverse effects.
So what, as I go through your book, part of it is that, yes, well, obviously as people coming, everybody is not made for being a self-made business owner. Many people need a structure. And as you said beautifully at the beginning, people have to learn how to work, to create work ethics and learn what to do and kind of like, work with other people. And a part of that is as they go into the different companies, they learn these skills of what to do, how to create structures, how to create projects, how to do teamwork together and move forward. So it is a training arena that we, as people move forward with it. One thing that I experienced when I was in corporate world, again, same thing, like, going on, needing to go, work. And I was part of the large corporations. What's funny is because you say how to work less. And my experience was I was actually working less. I was working like 2 hours instead of 8 hours and getting paid for 8 hours and non-efficient. While when I came and at one point I decided I'm no longer going to work for corporations and I was going to create my own businesses. And I worked so much harder. I made more money, but I also worked so much harder. So the concept of when you said, there's an inefficiency in working many times in the systems. I kind of agree with the inefficiency that gets created. And then, the management, if the management is not creating an appropriate environment, as you said, like if the whole management conversation is about profitability of one group and not caring about humans as human beings that are together, then there's a lot of hours that just goes in personality conflicts between people, competitiveness, which is not necessarily supportive in anybody. So it's almost like people come in together 8 to 10 hours to deal with each other versus projects and moving forward. So there's a lot also goes on in that realm as you walk into the corporate. But to come back to your book and saying that there is a way to be in a system and be efficient and really be the best of you instead of getting involved in these kind of, the political systems or different things that happens within a corporation and moves forward, right?
No, I totally agree. And I love the point you've made. I actually call out that the three biggest wastes of time in a workday are email, meetings, to your point about how people just come in to deal with each other. And then the third one that I call out is people pretending to work, right? And in a primarily work from home world, that's where, you're moving your mouse just to look like you're online and you're always by your phone, making sure you pick up anytime your boss calls, because we've equated picking up the phone really quickly to working. And I'll explain it this way, and it's setting aside like humanity for a second and that humanistic view of humans. And from a business perspective, we used to call people resources, and you do that for many reasons, which we don't have to get into today. But if you think about people's time being their primary resource, if they're moving their mouse and doing all of those things to appear, quote unquote, to be working, that resource of that human being of their attention and their time and their creativity is being wasted somewhere where our society could be benefiting from it somewhere else, even if it's them putting on a one-person comedy show or something else. Like we, exactly as you touched on earlier, doctor, like the whole idea of, well, they're paying me for 8 hours, so I should probably be around for 8 hours. But that's 8 hours you could be doing something in your neighborhood, in your community, for your family, for yourself. I mean, that time is really one of our most precious resources, and to have it just bought and paid for by a corporation, and then they technically own it because we can't find a more efficient way to distribute money in the global economy, it seems incredibly outdated. And I go into these details in my book, and if I'm going down a rabbit hole, doctor, just pull me back. But I go into these details in our book where the 40-hour work week is over 100 years old. And to give you an idea, that's before we had penicillin, right? And in the entire science of antibiotics, certainly before we had the internet, and before we had global communication systems, satellites around the world. And so it just seems, it's like, hey, if we develop this, in the 1920s, we should probably take a look at how we organize people's labor, how we pay them for that labor, and how we organize our time, because it seems like the take I plan in the book, and I look at this is the world now through, is it seems like we're struggling to understand what everyone should be doing with their time. And billionaires who understand how the system currently works are able to take advantage of that and make large sums of money, when to me, the fact that someone can become a billionaire is the fact that we have a poorly designed system. Like it just doesn't make sense that billionaires should exist in a efficient, well-designed societal system. And so now I'm getting off track, but I think, long story short, it wasn't until I was in a corporation that I noticed, like, this makes no sense. I think we can design a better way for people to spend their time, for them to contribute to their communities and the world, and for us to figure out how to take care of everybody.
Right. And I think that part of the reason that after a pandemic, it was such a slow time where people just didn't want to go back into jobs, was part of what you're sharing. I think there was a big awakening and a rude awakening for a lot of not only corporates, but also people who either lost their jobs, they couldn't go there anymore. And they had this opportunity to really start looking at, who am I? Why am I doing this? What's more important for me? Are there better ways of creating funds for myself and my life versus going through the same kind of path? Although, again, I mean, obviously there's structures for anything that needs to be done. Ultimately, there needs to be a structure in it, right? So
right.
You could do always individual things, but if you were going to, if you succeeded at that individual thing and then you wanted to expand it, ultimately you will have to create a structure. And partially what I'm hearing from you is, we need structures, and we could come together. And as we come together, we still need some form of a structure, but can the structure be a little bit more efficient? And can the structure be for the good of all, so that as we're getting together, it enhances everybody's life moving forward, in a sense, versus we create a structure that ultimately benefits a very few, while everybody else is not, they're benefiting in some level, but they're not benefiting in all of who they are as a human being.
100%. No, absolutely. Those, to use your language, the structure of the corporation needs to be changed. And that goal of those existing structures, right, like we've said, is profitability above all else. They need a new goal. And like I said, I don't know what that goal should be, but it seems high time that we evolve it, and we gear it and aim it at something else. In writing this book, although a lot of it is based on my own experience and how I got to become a director so quickly, and how to navigate the corporate jungle, and how to spend your time, and how to get out of email, and how to get out of meetings, and how to really hone yourself so you can learn every day and become a better asset, not only for the corporation you work for, but then also for yourself. To your point, maybe you can go out and start your own enterprise and make even more money. What we need to do is I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. I get so excited about how we need to redesign everything. I think how we spend our time, right, is how we spend our life. And if we're focusing first and foremost on how we spend our time to earn those 8 hours, we're missing the whole point of our life. And corporations, as a structure, to your point, they serve a certain purpose, and they got us to a certain point. And now I think a lot of these the things we're seeing in the news and a lot of these other things that I think are worrying us and taking up the primary amount of our time, to your point, even the pandemic, they made us realize that maybe it's time we restructure this. Maybe we point the structure towards something else. So we can truly evolve society, right? And doing all the research for the book, you find that there are countless societies that humans have already built up, and then for one reason or another have come tumbling down. And I think our society is getting to that breaking point of, hey, we're either going to need to pivot and redesign this thing and move in a different direction, or it's going to become so stressed that, God forbid, it comes tumbling down.
When you say be
Yeah.
a corporate hacker, what do you mean by that?
So yeah, first and foremost, you have to understand the system that you're in, and you have to understand corporation's primary function, and you have to understand that as a worker, it's primarily against probably your own interests. So a corporation's, let me tell you what I mean. So a corporation's primary goal is to make profitability. If their profitability is not often always going to be shared with you, right? It's going to be shared with the owners and the shareholders. Then as a worker, to make the most amount of money and work the least, your goal should be to work the least, should be to get your job done as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible in as little a time, so you can work less, for lack of a better term. And that's where we get back to the system and the structure making no sense, as if the company itself is pointing towards a different goal of what their workers are. There's constantly going to be friction and constantly going to be strife. And it seems like a system where both entities, the company itself and their leaders and the workers, are pointing towards the same goal would produce the most efficient outcome.
I mean, I can understand that if the payment and the salary was based on hours worked, so you get an hourly pay, then obviously you have to work hourly for that. So the more you work, the more you're going to get paid. So the conversation of, in that system, work less, you're going to get less. So that's why a lot of times the inefficiency comes that I have to look busy. I got to do this because I'm getting paid. But if you're paid by projects, if you're getting paid by the value that you bring, if if the money is not being given to you because of the hourly rate, it's giving to you because of some other standard that it's being created, then it would make sense that you would be working less hours, but the hours that you're working, the value that you're bringing to the company is higher. So when you say, for example, the combination of how you have it in your book, work less, make more, and actually like your life, how do you propose that balance can get created in a structure that someone else is putting? Because I can understand this, work less, make more, when you create your own entrepreneurship or you're creating your own business and coming up with that. But if you're going into a structure of a corporation, which is already set up as a culture there, where either, you could be valued for different things. Whereas we had some companies who they created a family system culture there where everything was ready. You could live there, you could sleep there, you could play there, you could work there. And it wasn't about the hourly that you have to be, because you could have been there 24 hours playing, but it was about producing ideas. It was coming together with that. So there were some corporations that were changing these factors. But what is it that, as you in your book say, okay, I'm going to hack the corporate jungle in order to work less and make more within that structure, though, not outside that structure? How do you propose that can happen?
So I roll out rules for those three primary time wasters: email, meetings, and pretending to work, and how you manage that to save time and work less. And then ultimately what I propose is, with that time you save, you have to do things that make you feel alive, that make you feel like you're using your life and the limited time you get in that life in a meaningful way and just for you. There's a body of research I encountered when I was writing the book about how it's very important how people see their time and how they're spending it and the value of that time for their own mental health. And that's a huge amount of math that we have off the books right now, is if you work 8 hours and you get paid for it, and although you make a great paycheck, right, hopefully, if you feel like that job was pointless, or it's the result of an inefficiency in society as a whole, or just something that you have to do to pay the bills, as your mental health will start to deteriorate. And as your mental health starts to deteriorate, your physical health does. And then you have to spend all of that money anyway with doctors and hospitals and trying to feel better. And so I propose you understand first how the corporation, or the corporate jungle, as I call it, is set up. The rules of that jungle. You understand that the rules of those jungle is exactly, I would say, I would say exactly kind of like, what am I trying to say? I would say you understand that the rules of those jungles served a specific purpose at a specific time, that we're evolving past that time, and that there's a better way for you to spend your time. And that'll help you, using my steps, that'll help you work less, and start to make more, because you'll be in the right meetings and the right conversations with the right people with the right budgets. And then you can get to actually liking your life. And that's making sure that your time is spent on things that you care about, that make you feel alive. And hopefully, I think I end the book with this, is helping me figure out how we redesign this whole thing. Yeah.
One of the most important statements that you make is how being at work, it's part of who we are as an identity, right?
Exactly.
Are growing up and envisioning as a child, like, who do you want to be, right? Like, what do you want to do? And we tell people, we tell children like 5 years of age, I'm sure you have children, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? So the identity that we create as work is very important for us. And most of the people, even around like 20s and 30s, that they haven't figured out who they are, you could sense this kind of like, okay, I'm just going to do what I got to do in order to, go through the steps. So many of the clients that I work with in that age range, it's more like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I got to learn, I got to get trained. All of those are part of the system that we go forward with. So not being happy, not being fulfilled in your work, thinking that your time is being wasted, your talent is being wasted, or there's no opportunity for you to really seek who you are and your talent, what your talent is, it does create a sort of a depression. What's the point? A pointless concept of life. So there's the concept you talk about, can you actually like your life? And especially those 8 to 10 hours that you are working per day, going back and forth and, putting yourself, do you enjoy what you do? Do you enjoy what you produce? Do you enjoy what you learn and what you could do with yourself as your identity, to feel significant, to feel proud of yourself for what you're creating? So part of what I'm hearing from you is that if you utilize your time efficiently, and then shift your idea about, now who can I be that I like myself? What are some of the things that I could do where I could be proud of myself? And if someone and your readers can really look at your book and start pondering about this matter, right? So then they can start looking at, is the corporate world that they live in right now and they work, is an environment that they can produce who they need to be in there, or this corporate world with this culture might not be it, and I might have to jump to another corporation that might possibly have something like that, or to start creating that life for myself.
No, exactly. I will say, to that point, I haven't met anyone in the corporate jungle who, to the latter of what you said, is happy and is fully themselves in corporations. I think large corporations kind of beat that out of you or highly encourage you to hide big parts of ourselves. But no, you hit the nail on the head. Dedicating your life to a corporation is in my experience a one-way ticket to being a miserable human being. And you need to find another goal for your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think your dedication to your life, it should be your life, right? So being in different environments just creates an opportunity for you to learn and create and collaborate with others. But you're right that if my dedication of my life becomes to another person's mission, then I'm not moving forward about my own mission, right? Because any corporation, a group are talking about their mission, and then you kind of jump in and or become part of this mission. And I guess everybody also utilizes the corporations to see what am I learning in this stage of my life from this structure, and if it no longer works for me, that I will shift from this structure to another. And you're saying,
No,
I know that I don't want this. I know how to become efficient in this, but I know that I don't want this. And you're looking for your readers as they go through this, and if they agree that they no longer want this, to come up with a design of something that could be useful and moving forward.
exactly. Yeah. And really the overarching idea, right, is we need to redesign our economy. That's incredibly outdated. Our global economy. We need to figure out a new way to organize it, everyone, the resources, etc. But before we get there, people have to shift how they see themselves, and they have to understand exactly what you said, that to live a happy life, I believe there's this aspect of you have to have enough time and room to be creative. And how I touch on that in our book, like that's who we are, I think, in our very fibers. We're creative beings. And how I touch on that is really, if you work 8 hours for a corporation, somewhere in there is what we call peak time. And that's your most creative moments of every day. And that's a finite amount of time. Like there are a lot of studies going on to try to expand that time. And you see a lot of psychedelics and microdosing coming on the scene to try to do that. And some corporations are actually experimenting with that globally. But for the most part, we know everyone has, if they're well rested and they're well fed, which is a huge gimme. If you're doing a job you hate, you're probably not doing those two things, is eating well and resting. But if you are all of those things, you probably have about 3 hours a day of that peak time. And spending an hour or an hour and a half of that time for your current corporation, to make the deal square and to pay your bills and to be honest and upright with your corporation, saying, hey, you're paying me, I'm going to give you some of my best. Here's an hour and a half of it, is wonderful. But but there's nowhere in your employment contract that says the corporation should own all of your peak time every day. And that's a big focus of my book, is making sure you pivot and figure out, pinpoint down to when is your peak time. Give some of it, 30% of it or so to the corporation, and then the rest of it to you. And I provide a framework and a schedule every week of how people can use that for their own creativity, to chase their own dreams, and then to also just take care of themselves. I think a lot of what we've seen, when I started writing the book and I quit my job to focus on it full time and really write the book, I'd ask people, well, if you could do everything, if you could do anything every day, what would you do? And I think the three top answers, or the two top answers I always got, is, oh, I'd sleep, or I would just rest. And I don't know, I'd probably just sit at home and watch TV. And those aren't real answers, right? Those are burnout answers. Those are saying you've never really had enough time to reflect on who you are, what you want to do, and how you want to contribute in your unique way to our society, that, all you can think about is sleeping. And it's wild in a day and age where we have so much technology and so much advancement that people aren't getting enough sleep. Like I think, I guess the next book will be about how do we design a society where people get enough sleep, and what does that look like? But I mean, it's just wild. I think we've advanced so much. And what I see now is how much we're working is having an adverse effect on people's health, on their mental health, and, to your point, on their ability to be creative and their own self-worth. And that's really what my book helps, is time, and time in general is a finite resource, right? And peak time specifically is a finite resource, and you should be prioritizing your day, both at work and out of work, around that peak time, so you can get the best and most out of your own brain, and the most life fulfillment.
How has that changed your life?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I like myself again. I don't know if towards the end of being in a corporation, I liked myself very much. Um, I wake up excited every day, and I'm nervous. I don't know what the next, last week I heard a quote that was like, "Success is not knowing what you're doing next week," and I would say I'm there. I don't want to like bore you with my whole two-year journey to get to this point in writing a book, and it's been about 2 years since I quit my job. And I went through so much. I went through like a period of depression where I felt useless and like I was just a blight on society. And then I ended up getting to a point where I was writing things I believed in. I was exploring hobbies I had always wanted to try, and I was starting to process trauma. I think so much. So if you're unhappy and if you're listening to this, it's probably because your life, and I say this in my book too, it's probably because your life is an amalgamation of what you kind of wanted to do and what others said you should do and what you're supposed to do. And I don't think that's how you find happiness. So to answer your question, I'm still searching for what's at the end of my rainbow, as it were, doctor. But I'm enjoying the walk now, and I have more hope than I ever did. And I have no idea what I'm going to do next week. I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah,
So one of the things that happened for me, I remember I think only 20, where I got a job
yeah,
position, which I had was more like sales for employment, actually. And I remember going and, being collaborative with everybody and trying and all of that. So my manager called me in and said, your numbers are not good. This was a nationwide agency. Your numbers are not good. And, I want to support you and see how I can get your numbers up, because obviously you're not, doing your job and selling. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? And she said, start looking and so and so and so and so, and follow their footstep and see role model what they do in their sales. So I did. About a month or two. So she called me in again, and I said, what did I do? She says, well, your numbers went high. Not only went high for our city and state, but it went high for nationwide. I just wanted to tell you that you're so good. All of this happened. You are so good that people now call you a barracuda. And I'm like, I didn't even know what a barracuda was. And I'm like, what is that? And so I went home and I checked what barracuda was.
yeah.
Fish that eats all the other fishes. So I sat there and I looked at myself and I thought, I hate what I'm doing. It's conniving, it's putting everybody down. And I did it so well within such a short time of role modeling from the best that people started calling me barracuda. So I went the next day with my resignation letter and I put it in front of her, and she was shocked.
Oh my gosh.
And she said, what happened? You just got to exactly where we all wanted you to get. I said, yes, but if it means that I have to be a barracuda to be who you want me to be, no, thank you. Like, no, I don't want to be a barracuda. And I don't want anybody to see me as a barracuda. That's not who I envisioned myself being, to be proud, to be eating all the other fishes, to make a little more money, a couple more dollars. So a couple of these things that happened to me, I decided I just wanted to go and, do my own creation. And so I did, right? So I became a therapist, and then I created my own companies and nonprofits, and then, created my own models and stuff. But the other side of this whole piece was when I also had, my business and kind of growing from like 5 employee to 25 to 30 and moving up. I also saw the other angle of us as human, and I want to share this with you and see what you say.
Yeah.
Which is, where it's only like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, they still can collaborate and move forward. But as the mass gets bigger, and you're creating structures. This concept of human being, that is, they're not going to just follow structures, right? So we all have this sense of us that we hate. We need structure, but we hate structure. So as I see that, the numbers of the growth happens, and the numbers of people with collaborative, they have to get collaborative with each other in order to be able to move forward. that also becomes harder and harder as you're trying to grow from that angle, from the management angle of, okay, we're going to do these projects. And that's where you see a lot more of the inefficiencies and power trips, and it starts happening, because although people need structure, they don't like to be jailed in a particular structure every day, in and out and in and out. And I think that because you're looking at new designs, I'm like, this dichotomy of how can we get together and be collaborative on a purpose that we're all moving forward, but to keep that purpose going in a collaborative concept and add more people to it constantly, it has become very difficult. So you could see this sense of, who can I be? How can I enjoy my time? How can I do all of this while I am part of a community that, yes, it also has a purpose that's moving forward? And how can I constantly realign myself with this purpose and moving forward? Because this can really, and you could probably, because you have children, you could see when it's just the couple, it's easier to maneuver the family system, right? I'm a family therapist. When there's one child that comes, okay, there's chaos, but we could handle it. And then imagine the chaos that happens, that as each child, you bring more children into the system, and creating alignment with different ages and different needs, and all that happens. So there's also that concept of humanity as it likes to come together, and for that corporation to get bigger. These are all the, constant issues that gets created with, as you get larger in a corporation.
No, well said. What it reminds me you're touching on is the structure of things, right? And there's these two core concepts of the hierarchical structure, which is, as you're alluding to, is this idea that you have people on top who are really defining and telling everyone else how things are supposed to work, and it's a very rigid structure. It's hierarchical. The typical top example most people hear in terms of that is like military, for example. Very hierarchical, can move pretty quickly in times of emergency, but otherwise it's very slow to adopt change. And then you have a network, or a network effect. And the top example people use to illustrate that kind of organizational structure is like the internet. The idea that you have all these different people on all these different nodes, and no one really has any more power than anyone else, and they can all kind of contribute their ideas. And the network itself, through the vast participation of everyone in it, gets to pick the winner, or the idea that kind of ends at the end of the day. And I think that's really I think where we're getting to, and where we need to shift as a society and as an economy, is the hierarchical structure serves a purpose, and it helps, everything we've talked about, get people contributing and worthwhile, and teaches them a trade. But at a certain point, we need to shift more to a network effect of allowing people to put in their own ideas and changes and shifts. And I people ask me all the time, like, why I wrote the book. And I think that's really the brunt of it is we need everyone more alert and aware, and a better participant in that network, so we can agilely adapt and more quickly and efficiently solve new problems. Because always going through a CEO or a CFO, or that the hierarchical structure we have today, is not gonna as the problems in the world get more complex, it's a very inefficient way to solve those problems, is through business managers and CEOs and folks, for all intents and purposes, 9 times out of 10 have an education in money management, and not in risk and new technology and various other things that I think are going to be the future of where our world goes.
Right. Or human management, or human collaborative management, I think, more than anything.
Exactly.
Hacking the Corporate Jungle: How to Work Less, Make More, and Actually Like Your Life, by Sean McMahon. Sean, anything we haven't touched upon that you could share with us that you really want people to know in 1 minute or so?
Yeah, absolutely. you shouldn't just be grateful. I mean, maybe your life is great and there are aspects of it you should be grateful for. But when I was, maybe like you, doctor, when I was contemplating leaving, everyone was just like, well, it's such a great job. You get paid so well. Like you should just be grateful for it and find something else. And I believe that to some degree, but you're not crazy. You shouldn't just be grateful. If something inside of you is telling you that this doesn't make sense, that it's wrong, I agree with you. And I think you should listen to that something inside of you and explore that, because I can't solve this alone. And I think, like we talked about on the network effects, I need all of you. I need all of your help and all of your contributions to make this system better and work for all of us and move us in the right direction. I guess the summary, the soundbite is you're not crazy. You feel that way for a reason, and we should explore that together. Reach out to me if you want to talk about it.
Absolutely. Where can they find you?
They can find me on my website. It's seanmcmahon.com. They can find me on TikTok. Those are the two primary places you can find me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, especially since you're on your vacation with your parents. And
yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
absolutely. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foujan Zain is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.